All right, let's talk about the moon landing. Was it one of humanity's greatest achievements, or one of its biggest, most elaborate lies? It's a question that has sparked one of the most stubborn conspiracy theories ever.
So, the theory goes like this. The US government, so desperate to beat the Soviets in the space race, decided to just fake the whole thing. They hired a director, built a massive soundstage, and broadcast a piece of science fiction to an unsuspecting world.
Now, we could just sit here and debunk claims one by one, but where's the fun in that? Instead, let's put on our detective hats. Let's really investigate the logistics, the technology, the whole story, to answer a much more interesting question. Was it even possible to fake the moon landing back in 1969?
So, where do we start our investigation? Well, our first piece of evidence isn't a moon rock or a photograph. It's people. And I mean a lot of people.
400,000. That's roughly how many people worked on the Apollo program. We're talking scientists, engineers, technicians, support staff, you name it. For this conspiracy to be true, every single one of them had to be in on the secret. I mean, think about it. Have you ever tried to plan a surprise party with just a few friends? Somebody always almost spills the beans. Now imagine trying to keep a secret that big among 400,000 people for more than half a century. The idea that not one single person has ever come forward with real proof for a big payday, for fame, anything, it just defies all logic.
Okay, so the sheer number of people is a huge problem for the theory. But let's put that aside and look at the proof itself, the footage that theorists say was faked.
The argument here is that the government must have used some kind of secret, super advanced film technology. But what did movie magic actually look like back then? Or even, decades later?
So on one side, you have the Scorpion King from the movie The Mummy Returns. This was 2001, and this was considered cutting-edge special effects. And let's be real, it looks pretty rough today. So the conspiracy requires us to believe that 32 years earlier, the government had secret technology that was light years ahead of this, used it for one live broadcast, and then just threw it all away? It doesn't really add up.
And that leads to another giant hurdle, the competition. Remember, this was the height of the Cold War. The United States and the Soviet Union were locked in this incredibly tense space race. You can bet Soviet intelligence was listening to every single beep and crackle from Apollo 11. If they had even a whiff of a fake, they would have shouted it from the rooftops. It would have been the propaganda win of the century. But instead, we heard nothing. Absolute silence. And that silence is deafening.
Okay, so let's say it was a movie. Every movie needs a script, right? Well, if you were making propaganda, you'd probably write a story about a flawless, heroic victory. But that's not what happened. As the lunar module was coming in for its final landing, things got really, really tense. Computer alarms started going off, codes they had never even seen in training. Then Mission Control starts the fuel callouts. 60 seconds. The entire room goes dead silent. Then you hear 30 seconds. They were moments away from having to abort the whole thing. When they finally touched down, they had less than 30 seconds of fuel left in the tank. It was a nail-biting, razor-thin success. So you have to ask yourself, if you're the director of this grand deception, why would you write that into the script? Why had computer errors and a scene where your heroes almost crash? A perfect, easy landing would have been so much better for propaganda. The flaws, the close calls, they make it feel real for one simple reason. They were real.
Finally, let's head to the crime scene itself. What clues were left behind, and can we actually see them today?
Conspiracy theorists love to pick apart the photos from the mission, looking for any little inconsistency. So, you know what? Let's do the same thing. Let's look at the most famous photos.
First up, the classic, the waving flag. The argument is, hey, there's no wind on the moon, so the flag shouldn't be waving. But if you look closely, it's not waving. There's a horizontal rod holding the top of the flag out. The ripples you see are just wrinkles from being folded up in a tiny container for the whole trip. Okay, now look at this amazing shot of Buzz Aldrin. In his visor, you can see this perfect, curved reflection of Neil Armstrong taking the picture, the lander, the lunar surface, everything. To fake that in 1969, you'd need an artist to hand-paint an impossibly detailed, perfectly distorted 360-degree image onto a curved helmet. Or, the simpler explanation is probably the right one. They were just on the moon, and they took a picture.
And if there's any shred of doubt left, here is the final nail in the coffin.
This photo was taken in 2011 by a NASA satellite orbiting the moon. That little speck you see? That's the descent stage of the lunar lander, right where they left it. And those faint dark lines? Those are the tracks left by the astronauts' boots, preserved perfectly for decades in an environment with no wind. The evidence is literally still sitting up there.
So, after looking at the people, the technology, the story, and the physical evidence left behind, what's the most logical conclusion here?
When you really break it down, you're left with two options. Option 1 is to believe in a massive conspiracy involving 500,000 people, secret technology that was decades ahead of its time and then immediately destroyed, or Option 2, that going to the moon, while an incredible challenge, was ultimately just easier than pulling off a fake that perfect.
Which leaves us with one final nagging question. If the evidence is so overwhelming, why do so many people still believe it was a hoax? Well, maybe it's because the idea of a giant, complex conspiracy is, in a weird way, more comforting than the awesome, and maybe even intimidating, truth of what we can achieve when we really set our minds to something.